Hey everyone, my name again is Dave, and this is Bluebears Games, and we are doing a Blues Budget Brews. For those of you that have never seen any of my videos, welcome, and for those that do return every week, welcome back. This week we are going to be doing I guess they call it a Golgari build, that's the name for him. For black-green is Hapatra, the Vizier of Poisons, and we're going to do a budget deck here. Remember, this deck is for sale. So if you have any interest in it after you've watched the video and you've possibly looked at the link where the deck list will be, go ahead and send me a message. I'll have all the information in the description of the video below. But let's get started. So, Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons, black-green, 2/2, human cleric. Whenever Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons deals combat damage to a player, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. It doesn't have to be yours. It can be on anybody's, including your opponent's. Whenever you put a one or more, so that's important for each instance of putting the counters on, not for each counter. Whenever you put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, you create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. So, you can kind of see where we're going here. We're going to go with the -1/-1 counter theme. So, let's go ahead and get into the deck. Alright. So, I always start off with the land. And let me zoom out a little bit. Not in, out. Alright, so land's pretty simple. We have black-green, whatever duels I could come up with for the budget. So Temple of Malady, Jungle Hollow for the extra life, Golgari Guild Gate, because again, black-green is called Golgari, Fail Orchard, and then I put in here an Ifnir Deadlands, because you can sacrifice it to put basically two counters on target creature an opponent controls and activate that only during your turn pretty much, or cast it as a sorcery. Rogue's Passage, so in case you want to hit something and you'll see the theme of the deck, really can use Rogue's Passage well. It makes things unblockable. Grasping Dunes, again, same thing as the Ifnir Deadlands. It puts -1/-1 counters on things. And again, you can only use it as a sorcery. Barren Moon for the cycling. Tranquil Thicket for the cycling. And then the two deserts for the black-green for cycling. And Ash Barrens, again, for cycling, so you can get through some stuff. I've got a Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds so that you can thin out your deck and get to the right color. It's a color fixing, because we are in two colors. And then, of course, some forests and some swamps. Now, for this next portion of the deck, I'm going to go over some lands that you could possibly use to upgrade the deck. Remember, we're in budget deck status, so as a budget deck goes, this is only about a $40 deck, but you can really ramp this deck up, and it'll be expensive. So, first suggestion, Bayou, OG Duel, the black-green one, Overgrown Tomb, the shock land. They got the fetch land for Verdant Catacombs. Then you've got the check land, and I'll put them all up here so you can see what I mean by check land. It's the ones that come into play tapped unless you control one or the other of the basic land. What's the black-green one? I forget what the black-green is, but I'm going to put it up there. Then you've got the filter land, which is Twilight Mire. Those are just reprinted recently. And, you know, you're in black, so one of the good things about black is back in the day they created a set that was like heavy black, and then all the other colors were just secondary. So there are tainted lands out there. So when you're in black, especially if you're in two color, you can put a tainted what is it, black green? So tainted wood would be the black green one. So it taps for a black or a green if you control a swamp. They have one for each color, so it's a good spot to be in. When you're in green, you can do a lot of things with color fixing and mana. So, all right, next section we're going to do is the ramp section. We're in green again, so it's pretty simple. Rampant Growth, obviously. Beneath the Sands, so if you already have enough land out and you just want to draw a card, you can cycle it. Natural Connection goes and gets a basic. Grow from the Ashes has a kicker, so you can actually get, what is this? So you can go for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, or if it's kicked, you can search for two basic lands and put them on the battlefield. So good, nice and helpful. Journey of Discovery, I put in every budget deck that I can because it's a good solution. It's a little expensive, but again, we're on a budget, so you can't do a lot of the expensive. Remember, ramp is expensive monetarily. This may look weird, but Beanstalk Giant actually is not in here for the creature. It's only in here for the adventure. So you can go search for a land. Seek the Horizon, so let you go and get 3 and put it in your hand. Not necessarily ramp so much as it's mana fixing, but it still thins out your deck and gets them in your hand. So, pretty simple. With the upgrades for that are not horrible. I mean, they're expensive, but they're not bad, especially since we're in green. So we have things like the same as the Tristani deck. If you haven't seen that deck, go watch that too. So some of the suggestions are going to be like Farseek, Nature's Lure, 3 visits. It was just reprinted in Commander Legends, so it's a lot cheaper than it was. It was like a $100 card. Now it's a $1 card. Arcane Signet. I myself don't use Arcane Signet for 2-color decks. I like to save them for 3-color decks, but you can go ahead and add that. And, you know, again, you're in green, so you can go ahead and look up whatever you want on what I use is the NTG Familiar app. You can go ahead and use that app to go find what you prefer as land ramp searchers. Those are my personal choices. Some people have a difference in opinion. You can do whatever you want. Alright, up next is the creatures, and you're going to notice a very, very resounding theme here. So, we're going to start off with Necropede, and the theme here is right here. Infect. You're going to see a lot of infect, and you're going to see a lot of -1/-1 counters all over the place. This one has infect, so it does what you want it to do, especially with Hapatra out in play. And then if it's put in the graveyard, you can also put a -1/-1 counter on anything that's out there, creature-wise. Serrated by Skellion, again, he actually can put -1/-1 counters all over the place. So his ability actually reads as putting a -1/-1 counter on himself and another creature. So with Hapatra out, you can actually get 2 tokens just on that. And if you have a way to remove the counters, which there are ways to do so, you can just keep that train going. Phyrexian Digester, just a generic infect creature. Core Prowler, it actually can proliferate, and proliferate is going to be a theme here. Just because if you can have a way to put multiple counters out in play, you can have, that's a good way to get multiple tokens out of Hapatra. Blight Mamba, it's really cool because it regenerates. I like that ability. This is the other part of the theme, so instead of just being, and you know what, I'm going to zoom a little bit more. Alright, just because you can put -1/-1 counters on your own stuff to get the benefit of the creatures, the token generation from Hapatra. So that's the other theme. This is putting the tokens on your own creatures. Usually it'll be on your tokens so that you can actually get tokens out of it without losing your own. If you haven't noticed, this thing's actually a 2-cast 4/4. So it's not horrible to use this. Now it says, when it enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. It doesn't have to be this. So if you have a token out already, you can put all 3 on the same token, get 3 tokens out of it, and this is still a 4/4. Channeler Initiate. So it enters with 3, and then you can remove a counter to add mana. So if you have a way to stop counters from going on it, or if you have a way to remove, or to add the counters and remove them, you've got something going with an infinite there. So there's a way to untap it. You know, there's a whole lot of things you can do with that one. Ornery, I guess it's Kudu, I don't know. Same thing, it comes into play and puts -1/-1 counters on creatures you control. Same thing with the Great Maul. The good thing about the Great Maul is he also has the ability to remove counters as well. So, and again, like I've been doing for the past couple of videos, if you have a card you want to look at, you could either go into the MTG Familiar app, or you can pause the video and you will be able to read the card for yourself so you can see where I'm going. Crocodile of the Crossing, same thing, just add -1/-1 counters to your creatures. Tangle Angler is infect, and it makes it so creatures must block it if able. Blight Widow, reach and infect, so you can stop some flyers. I don't know how well Tel Jihad Fallen's going to do in the deck. It has protection from artifacts, but it has infect as well, so that's all that mattered to me. Endray's Forerunners is the poor man's Craterhoof Behemoth at this point. This is one of the ways that you're going to end up ending the game. With infect, you only need to have 10 poison counters on your opponent, so if you can get 10 damage through, this is going to help push that through because it does give the trample you need. So again, poor man's Craterhoof. At some point in time, I do expect to see, since Craterhoof Behemoth hasn't really been easy to get a hold of, this may end up jumping in price at some point. The black creatures are Festering Mummy because when it dies, it gives a counter. Fume Spitter, same thing. You can sacrifice them to put a counter on something. Ruthless Sniper is whenever you cycle or discard a card, and I do have the cycling lands in here, so you can use his ability. You can pay 1 and then put a counter on something. Baleful Emmet is another one of those put -1 counters on creatures you control, but this one has lifelink, so it helps keep your life up. Same thing with Soul Stinger, but Soul Stinger actually has a thing where when it dies, the counters that are on him can be transferred to another creature. So, more tokens with Hapatra out. Skin Render, when it enters the battlefield, you can put 3 counters on any creature. Archfiend of Ifnir. So it's a 5/4 flyer, and then when you cycle or discard another card, you can put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. That's a lot of tokens. Excuse me. And he cycles in case it doesn't, it's not something that you can do. Toxic Nim, another regenerator that has infect, always good. Carnifex Demon, so it's a flyer, comes into play with counters, and then you can remove the counters to put counters on other creatures. So again, more moving them around, and that means taking them off and putting them on something else, which creates another token. Obelisk Spider, another reach creature. When it deals, here's where the other theme of the deck comes into play. So when it deals combat damage to a creature, you put a -1 counter on it, like as if though it had either infect or wither. And then when you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, each opponent loses life and gain a life. So that creates. So we've already got the infect. We've got the token swarm, so you can go wide. You can do it the infect way. Now you've also got the aristocrat style, where you can just bleed your opponent dry. And then you've got Decimator Beetle, which also helps to add and remove tokens from, or counters, not tokens, remove counters from creatures to create more tokens. So you got a couple options there. And as far as that goes, that's the budgetary version that I was able to come up with what I had. However, then there are other things that you can do. So the non-budget versions. So I actually said it earlier. You have the Wither creatures. So, there's a couple of them. I'm trying to think. It looks like it's Necroskitter, Midnight Banshee, and Cinderbones because he regenerates as well. You've got other infect creatures. Hand of Praetors, I believe, gives a +1/+1 bonus to all infect creatures. You've got Skittles, or for those of you who don't know who Skittles is, you've got Skithrix. And then if you really wanted to be cheeky, and this is a real good strategy here, Malira, because Malira doesn't allow the counters to go on your creatures. You still get the bonuses of everything. Now, the only reason why that's not so good is because it kind of negates Hapatra's ability to put the tokens into play. But it's a nice way to get a 2 to cast 4/4 out and play with no drawbacks. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm a little upset about this next one. So there is a creature out there called Wickerbow Elder. It was reprinted in Commander Legends. I did not pull one from the first box I opened. I was going to include it in this deck. That's the reason I bought the box. Not just for that, but for other reasons. And my box sucked. It sucked so bad I erased the video and didn't even post it. I didn't even get a common Wickerbow Elder. But that can be included in here. It should have been. I just didn't pull one. So, and again, you can go on to get the MTG Familiar and take a look. Find Wither creatures, because Wither does almost the same thing as Infect. And then find any other Infect creatures I may not have had or did not include just because I didn't have them or budgetary reasons. And you can go ahead and add them in there. So, a couple of options for you. Hopefully you can take a look and see what you want. So a couple utility sections here. Utility meaning, stuff that really helps the deck out but doesn't really have a name. So this is actually defense here. This is one of the utilities. We went with a lot of spot removal so that you can get rid of big threats. So we start with Spark Harvest, and the reason for that is because you can sacrifice a creature. you're going to have tokens to sacrifice, and you can destroy a creature or a planeswalker. Bone Splinters, it's not going to hit a planeswalker, but it still hits a creature, so you can kill anything on the board. Severed Strands, again, sacrifice a creature, and then you can gain life equal to the creature's toughness, and then destroy a creature an opponent controls. Terror, Reeve's Soul, Lethal Sting, because you can actually use this to put a -1/-1 counter on your own creatures and destroy a creature. Assassinate, Asphyxiate, Impale. Death Sprout was actually one where I wasn't 100% sure if I should put this in ramp or removal. Because it does both. It destroys a creature, and then you can search your library for a basic land and put it on the battlefield tapped. Naturalize, in case somebody has a pesky little enchantment or artifact out, such as, Rhystic Studies or something that prevents you from attacking. So you've got a couple options there. And then Return to Nature, which is an upgraded version of Naturalize for the same cost. So, and it's not upgraded by much. It just exiles a card from a graveyard on top of what the other one does, but it's still an upgrade. Alright, so as far as removal goes, upgrades are a little bit different. So removal upgrades for this deck are really choice for what you want to do. Obviously, there's something like Damnation, but you don't want to destroy all your creatures. So that's why I put spot removal in here. I didn't want global effects that kill things because you want your creatures to be on the board still. So I did a lot of spot removal. So again, use MTG Familiar. If you haven't used it, contact me. I'll show you how to use it. It's only for Android, unfortunately, but it's a great tool for anything you want to look up. You can even shorthand some of the words. You don't have to even have to, like, when you're looking something up, you don't have to put in graveyard or battlefield. You can just put in battle and grave, and it'll still find the cards you're looking for. So it's a great tool. For me, I use it almost daily. So, one other thing for removal I'm going to add there. It's the only specific card I'm going to mention is Black Sun's Zenith for a couple reasons. It puts -1/-1 counters on a lot of things. And it shuffles back into your library, so you can get it multiple uses out of it. So it's the only card I'm going to mention as far as that goes. Alright, continuing on utility, we're going to go with the next section. We're going to start with Contagion Clasp. Contagion Clasp is the quintessential, it was made for this kind of a deck. It comes into play, puts a counter on something, and then every turn you can proliferate it. Proliferate means you choose any number of permanents and or players that have counters on them and give them each another counter of that kind. That includes the poison counters that are on your opponent. So if they have one, this adds another one for just using its ability. -1/-1 counters, you can put another one of each. Anything you want. So, with that being said, this is another way that you can win. Using things like Proliferate. Having hit an opponent with Infect, you give them a poison counter. You get to 10, they lose. Contagion, or Trigon of Corruption, puts -1/-1 counters on things, and the reason why I like this, the Trigons in general, is because they don't sacrifice, so you can continually use them. So this puts counters on things that you want. Sure, you have to charge them up, but at least they don't sacrifice, so they're usable more than once. So I also added the Trigon of Infestation because it creates 1/1 infect tokens. So it keeps the train going. You can keep putting out things with Infect. Infect is a bitch to deal with just because you can't remove the counters from a player. There's one card, I believe it's Leeches, that does it, but who has it? I do, but I don't use it because who's going to take up a spot for that? Cheeky little one here, Serrated Arrows. It's an oldie but goodie. People have forgotten that this exists. It comes into play, you put 3 counters on it. And remember, you can proliferate to add more to it. And then you can, during your upkeep, you have to, they use the word bury, but basically sacrifice Serrated Arrows. And any time you can just tap it and remove a -1/-1 counter from Serrated Arrows, and then you can put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. However, something that's a little weird that people don't realize, when you read Hapatra, it says when you put them on a creature. So remember, Serrated Arrows does not create tokens when you put the counters on it, because they're arrowhead counters. So I did have a question about that. Somebody had asked about that. I don't know why. Excuse me. A lot of people don't realize when you say RT FC, which is read the fucking card, sometimes, things are misconstrued. So just realize that. Serrated Arrows does not create the tokens. Alright, next. Virulent Wound. It's just an instant that puts a -1/-1 counter on a creature. And if the creature is put into a graveyard this turn, its controller gets a poison counter, so it does double duty. Splendid Agony, an instant that distributes 2 -1/-1 counters. Instill Infection does the same thing, but you get to draw a card. Torment of Venom, put 3 -1/-1 counters. It's on a creature, and its controller loses 3 life unless he or she sacrifices another non-land permanent or discards a card. So it has a couple of things it can do. And Slingshot. Now, if you don't want to use this one puts 3 counters on a creature with flying. If there's no flying creatures, you can just cycle it away and draw a card. Alright. So that's that little section there. Let's see here. Couple of notes. You know what? I keep doing that. Alright. Couple of notes here for utility on that section. There is another thing like the Contagion Clasp. It's called Contagion Engine, where it puts when it comes into play, it puts -1/-1 counters on all of your opponent's creatures. I'll put it up here so you can see what it does. It does the same thing, but it proliferates twice. So it says 4 tap proliferate, so you can do it twice. So that's way more counters. So that's one option. However, that's a $10 option, so that's not really budget version. Let's see what else we got here. You know what? I'm going to go into the next section because that's what the next section calls for. Next section for utility is card draw. Black has some ability to do card draw. Costly Plunder. There are a couple of cards just like this. I didn't have them at the time. I didn't have room for it in the deck either, but you can, sacrifice a creature and artifact to draw 2 cards. There's a couple of effects like this in black. Then you've got the card drawers that black has, which are things like Sign in Blood, where you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Same thing with Read the Bones, only you get to scry 2 beforehand. Painful Lessons, again, target player draws 2 and loses 2 life. You can actually target that on an opponent for some reason if you want to. Live Fast, I only have this in here. It has nothing to do with the energy counters, trust me. It's just because you can draw 2 cards. And Succumb to Temptation, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. So, a couple of different ways to draw cards. The upgrade to this would probably be, you know what? There's a couple of other ones you can do. You just use the MTG Familiar app to go through. Last section of utility, and I'll go over the win cons after that. Diabolic Tutor, because we need tutors. Molder Vine Reclamation. So whenever a creature you control dies, you gain a life and draw a card, so there's more card draw. Plane-Wide Celebration may look like an odd selection for this deck, but it actually does a lot of work. So you can choose 4, but you can choose the same mode more than once. It's actually a catch-all for whatever the situation is going on in your game. So you can create tokens that are all colors. I don't know if that really matters. I mean, if you need creatures for blockers, it's great, and you can make 4 of them, or you can make 1 and then a couple other things. Where it gets interesting is the return target permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So if you need to get something back, you can get up to 4 things back with this. The proliferate is actually the reason for this being in there, because you can proliferate 4 times, which can create a lot of chaos and a lot of tokens. So that's why the inclusion of Plane-Wide Celebration. It looks like an odd choice. Works perfectly in here. The big daddy for this deck is Nest of Scarabs. This is the most important card in the deck. If you want to get one card out, this is it. Whenever you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. It's basically Hapatra's ability on an enchantment. Not the first one, but the second one. So this is the big daddy. This is this is to double your token creation. And going with the Aristocrats theme, Bastion of Remembrance. When Bastion of Remembrance enters the battlefield, you can create a token, and then whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Again, pure Aristocrats bleeding your opponent. And then the other thing, Overcome. Things like this will work too. So creatures you control get +2/+2 and trample until end of turn. It's kind of like the what the hell's the name of the card? The End Raise Forerunners, is that what it's called? I believe it's what it's called. It's a small version of Endrage's Forerunners. Yeah, there it is. So they get +2/+2 vigilance and trample, so it's the same thing. So to add to that, that was the whole deck, but let me add to that section real quick. So there are ways to win with this deck. So you can add more aristocrat style things. There's Falconwrath Noble, Zulaport Cutthroat, or whatever it's called. I'll put them up here on the screen. They help bleed your opponent, but they're expensive monetarily speaking. The Zulaport Cutthroat was reprinted recently, so it's not as expensive. But like, there are some that do aristocrat style things that are $3 and $4, so it doesn't really fit the budget. You can do more overrun effects. You can do overrun itself. I only had an overcome. You can do overrun. You can put a Craterhoof Behemoth in if you want. And remember, you're doing infect, so you only need to deal 10 to an opponent to kill them. Doesn't matter after that. You got other proliferate effects I mentioned earlier. Again, the what is it called? This is the Contagion Clasp. You have the Contagion Engine. So you've got stuff like that. You've got other things that do proliferate when you kill things. You know, Black has a couple of things. There are so many good like things that you can do. The problem is that, you know, it gets really expensive really quickly. So there are also other things that you can do to add to this deck, like Cryptolith Rite, which makes it's an enchantment that makes it so your creatures all can tap to add a mana of any color. You could have a lot of mana because of all the tokens you're creating. You've got Crumbling Ashes, which helps you destroy helps destroy things on the board. Token doublers like Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, stuff like that helps you create even more chaos with tokens and with counters. You have some control effects like Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos, so whenever one of your creatures dies, you can kill somebody else's. And the list goes on and on. I mean, this is one of the better strategies for Commander, in my opinion. That's my humble opinion. But Infect just gets it done faster than everything else. Doesn't matter what. It's even less than Commander damage. You only have to do 21 combat damage with your own creatures. You can just give it Infect and just go. So that is my version. For budgetary reasons, I had to constrain it down for Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons. For me, that's one of the better strategies in Commander, in my humble opinion again. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is what I ask you to do, the same thing I ask every single time. Like, give a thumbs up, like, subscribe. I believe we're at 244 as of the making of this video. Share the video out so I can have it, get more views, get more likes and all that stuff. It would be great. So, that is my video. Oh, you know what? I always forget to do this. Don't forget that this deck is for sale. It's $40, or if you buy 2 Commander decks, I do them at $35 each for a little dual deck kind of thing, so you can have a partner to play with. Mystery packs, $5. I got all of one color or one with all colors, plus, artifacts, gold, and non-basic lands. Go to the Facebook page and you'll see I have new advertisements for that up there. Please, it's the way I run this channel. It's helped me do this. So, again, like, subscribe, share. Go to the Facebook page if you want to actually help support me by buying some of the crap that I have up there. Anyway, that's all for the week. I will see you guys next week. Thank you.